Tonight on Ground Crew Command Radio, very interesting developments continue with possible changes to the fundamentals of the matrix itself and how it operates. So I'm going to get into some very interesting stuff regarding that. And the 144K is being asked, rest assured, it's being asked to maintain the timeline upgrades, continue them. Freedom is closer than ever, and can financial reset occur before the main arrest as the infamous trading platforms are shut down? I'll tell you all about what they are on tonight. And of course, special guest Thomas Williams drops in to fill us in with the latest exo and geopolitical news analysis. It's all happening here, folks, on Ground Crew Command Radio, your central support network and your weekly dose of empowering clarity, inspiration and motivation to get you through the Archon-invented work week. This is the Unknown Light Warrior, your loving servant. We're back. This is Ground Crew Command Radio. You're listening to the Unknown Light Warrior. Well, troopers and goddesses, it's obviously, among other things, a classic case of holding the line from here on the physical and fully utilizing the very specific privileges that do come, and very unique privileges that do come with operating from the physical. Those privileges are lost if you were to hypothetically, leave your physical body. Those privileges are gone. And so, what do I mean by that? Well, to all new 144K members and listeners, you may or may not know that when one knows how to project their consciousness from the physical plane to the non-physical realms of any kind, you're the biggest mover and shaker in whatever particular context or situation you're dealing with. When projecting your consciousness from the physical to the non-physical plane, it's largely a lost art, even within the light worker community. And here at 144K headquarters, it's been well and truly recovered. And for those of you who are veterans of 144K style of advanced mass meditations, you know exactly what I mean. This is a sacred privilege and, not to be lost on us. So, this is one of the kind of like a culture that we have here at 144 headquarters. And really, let me see here. I want to make sure I don't miss on some really important points down in my little note section over here. There's some fascinating snippets that have come out of fm144k.blogspot.com. No one knows who this individual is. Yes, the language, the terms, the style of writing is literally the same as Cobra's, and I'll get into those possibilities in a few minutes. As I've mentioned on the article for this week's show, it's the issue of positive groups being infiltrated. Now, all of those of you who've done your homework on the physical cabal, the physical secret societies, you know that these physical level secret societies almost all started on the positive path. They were positive groups. Freemasons, positive. Templars, positive. Rosicrucians, positive. Etc., etc. And then in a few hundred years, they're dark all of a sudden. Or, well, really it's more of a factionalized positive and or negative factions. All right, and for cosmic disclosure fans, you know, you've heard Corey Good say these guys are the master infiltrators. So, other than their, you know, black magic rituals that they always do before proceeding with whatever physical action they take, these guys are the master infiltrators, and there's, you know, the various forms of infiltration. You know, there's deliberate, conscious, physical dark agents that go to whatever positive group. There's sort of the rows, light worker groups of various kinds, mathematician groups in many cases, and they infect and they infiltrate, and they don't necessarily shut it down completely, but they either render it harmless from darkness's perspective, or they, you know, gradually over time veer it off into a toxic direction where it does as much harm as good, you know. And so, you know, there's the conscious ones. Quite often, you know, they're the dark incarnates or actual Luciferians. Actual Luciferians, part of the massive Luciferian network that infiltrate very aggressively. Then, of course, there's the unconscious infiltrators, and this is, I don't know, a bit more heartbreaking in a way, because these infiltrators, they've got no idea they're infecting the network. Many of them are actual light workers, just really damaged, really hold themselves as small, you know. And don't get me wrong here, don't at all get concerned or paranoid or, you know, if you think you may fall into that category. Don't worry about it, really. That's not the message. You know, it's good to have consciousness on it, but these are just two classic examples of the kind of infiltrators. And FM144 pointed out a few examples of the infiltration, and they're not just similar to mine in terms of things like the symptoms within people's behaviour, within what happens in a network that start to show up when as symptoms of infiltration. But again, like I said, it actually linked to my article on my friend's website, spiritualselftransformation.com, by quite the light warrior Etienne Charlan, who was once on this show almost 2 years ago now. And again, when you when someone recommends a particular resource and that someone clearly shows through really resonant information, they know what they're talking about. It just reaffirms that the what is now called the four protocols. It used to be called the 3 protocols. Now it's the 4 operational protocols for light workers, and how to spot and shut down darkness conduits in your network to save your relationships. That extra bit of confirmation and validity, I guess, by FM144K goes to show, I suppose it gives you more reassurance and peace of mind that you are not wasting your time going through that article. And admittedly, my articles tend to be mini, very succinct, short courses because of how long my article is, but it's the kind of thing you'll want to set aside an hour on the weekend and go through it. Or listen to it, because there's a radio show version of it as well. Let me find his tab. Here it is. No, not that one. Okay, there we go. Got so many tabs up. So, anyway, with his most recent article, or her recent article, but understandably most people think it's Cobra, just under a more disguised and protected, therefore, kind of situation. It was posted only 5 days ago, titled Endgame, with this post. And it starts off with the attempt to bring in twin flames, one being at a non-physical level closer to their physical opposite. And I'll begin with where it begins to talk about a second wave of attack, I guess, by darkness, where the Dark Ones are trying once again to take action against the goddess herself with everything that they have, with a special aim of neutralizing high priestesses. Still an issue because the issue of infiltration hasn't been effectively dealt with. Now, although I have my fair share of external resistance and attacks, infiltration with the 144K itself has been dealt with successfully. It's infiltration free. It's going to stay that way. Like I said, because of the beyond multiversal level of light factor, and me being an old soul, let alone a commander type soul that knows how to spot this sort of basically a lot of the stuff that I explained in the original, recruitment page for the 144K. It won't happen. Long story short, 144K won't be infiltrated. Hasn't been infiltrated. God knows darkness has tried through both direct non-physical attempts and direct physical attempts. And doesn't mean that we haven't been bashed around from time to time. We certainly have been, but we go up to the teams beyond multiversal levels of light. We transmute the living daylights out of it, and things are back to normal. And again, you can do that at any time you want with the ICB in particular, which is more structured for specific issues. That's an exclusive focus on a given singular session. But I digress. So the situation hasn't been dealt with in general within the light worker community, the goddess networks, just over the road. It hasn't happened, hasn't been successfully dealt with. And those groups are invited to, in some way, integrate with the 144K, by the way, as a way of finally getting a grip on this profound infiltration problem. Let me see, I'll miss my spot here. Really important points. So, okay, it goes into interesting details about high priestesses here on the surface, and that many of them, most of them are not in public. Okay, they've had to, they can't afford, it's not safe enough for them to go public, generally speaking. There are goddesses out there, no doubt, that are public, such as Sandra Walter, Lisa Renee, and I'm sure you can think of a few others. But they're not necessarily focused on, if you look at their websites, they're not necessarily focused on the goddess thing. Okay, it's more broadly about spirituality in general. So even though technically the goddesses, it's not really the same thing in terms of these specific high priestesses that FM144K is referring to. and they are incarnated on the surface, as it says. However, they do get bombarded tremendously on an energetic level. And obviously a lot of us know what that's like. And he goes on to say the light forces are currently implementing certain measures to counteract this too. And I guess I was offering help to them publicly. And again, it reminds us that the Dark Ones, during the recent new moon, the Dark Ones intensified their rituals as usual, because they don't know what else to do at this point, which re-emphasizes to do your daily, even if it's just 15, 20 minutes, look for entities around you the way I've showed you in past episodes, and we're gonna edit those free training tools that you can use pretty much on the fly. We're gonna edit it and give it and deliver them to you. You give them away for free. Do that for about 20 minutes, each morning, because it really helps bring your timeline for that day onto a positive one, comparatively speaking. Really important ability. So, and I lost my spot again. So, yeah, just be really religious and disciplined about your morning and daily clearing. Could be 10 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, that's enough. Follow the free tools that's been provided on Ground Crew Command, and you'll be comparatively much better off. It doesn't mean attacks are going to stop completely, because this is in the context of a war. Okay. So it brings good news about developments that the light forces have been working on with regards to Great Britain, as an example, and the resignation of Theresa May, who was trained at the Tavistock Institute, which is another stereotypical cabal, mind control, social engineering institution. That's been cleared and so forth. But it does mention, after its link to the 4 operational protocols, the Lightworkers article, it does explain some of the signs that it goes of, signs that your network has been infiltrated. And some of them is simply, again, whether they're conscious, dark, or actual Luciferian types, or whether they're unconscious, well-meaning light workers that are just really damaged and haven't reached that critical mass amount of internal healing. Some of the symptoms, just to quickly run through them, is they just sit there quietly, and this includes both physical get-togethers and virtual networks. So several of the symptoms are they just sit there quietly, watching and contributing nothing at all to what is happening. And again, on my article, another sign of that is they quite often repeat what other people say, something to the effect of, "Oh, me too, that's what I was thinking," kind of thing. Again, it's all in the article, and it's important to know and spot these symptoms. But they do it continuously, not once or twice in 6 months. They do it continuously. The other symptom or sign is they possess a negative aura near which other participants feel uncomfortable or sucked away, like they feel more tired. The other one is they just want to be served and wooed. Another one is they command other people around, sting, attack at other participants, or verbally attack them. And another one is they're always commonly unpunctual or have to leave the premises all the time because they can't stand the high energies. And that applies virtually as well. They gossip a lot. with mostly infiltrated non-members about everything that's going on within the group, but like it doesn't go anywhere. You got to know it doesn't actually go anywhere. It's really non-productive, and all this talking and ever more talking, and nothing actually happens. No new insights, etc. They want to invite negative people into the group who then get extremely angry when they are not allowed to get inside. And then you can be sure that your group is infiltrated by spies, energy vampires, and or reptoids of some sort who want to blow up the group, end the group. So go check out that really great article and the last two articles over at www.fm144.blogspot.com. It seems to be another one of those rocks or pillars that you can lean on through the rough winds of this particular realm and this particular war. And so, whether this could be Cobra himself reading it, I'm going to get into that just after my brief chat with Thomas, who's waiting on the line, and we'll take it from there. Let me see if I can find his name, or okay, I believe, yep, that's got to be good old Thomas. Thomas,
yes.
Just say hi to everyone, make sure we can hear you, and it's great to have you back on the show. Have you been?
I'm doing okay, despite all the fun and games and everyone off a bit.
Okay, gotcha. That echo is dead.
The frequencies are heavy to hold at the moment, and people are struggling with it. But it's giving them time to reflect on themselves and where they're going in terms of themselves and the information and all kinds of other circumstances. People are sleeping in different cycles. In fact, I spoke to two different people today who mentioned the same thing. It's important if your body is telling you you're tired and it's midday, then sleep. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Because of certain work that's been done, certain frequencies have certainly changed people. Most people have felt that, even though they may not understand it. The old AI circadian cycle has lost its balance and control. So, like when people get hungry and it's not breakfast, dinner, or breakfast, lunch, and dinner time, people will snack. Well, it's the same with the sleep rhythm. You might be awake half the night. That often happens to me. I'll fall asleep for an hour and a half, which means I've gone out. You'll know that term. And then come back, and then I'm awake for 3-4 hours, and then I might sleep again for another 2. But most people.
It's interesting that you mentioned. I heard you mention the AI circadian rhythm, because most of our circadian rhythms are screwed up, and up until very recently, I've struggled to get to bed on time, to eat minimum 3 hours before going to bed, and being able to have a solid sleep, and and all that kind of thing, because that has a big energetic influence, by the way, folks. And I've always wondered, well, why am I struggling so much with my circadian rhythm? I would transmute entities and do this and that, And it's only recently that I've been able to get a grip on my circadian rhythm. So it's very interesting that you mentioned AI circadian rhythm. So obviously to imply that most people's circadian rhythm was actually influenced or controlled by an AI with a specific program, assumably. What can you tell us about that, and how did you find that out?
Well, essentially, like many other things, it's gone down. The matrix, the veil, the electromagnetic veil, they've all gone down. The soul traps have gone down. The technology of memory wipes and reincarnation has gone down, and the old psychotic AI. Now the problem is it's like muscle memory. If people still believe it's there, then they'll carry on, and it will affect them as though it's still there. As people get
the body that will do it.
Yeah, as people get more and more in tune with themselves, they'll recognize there's a program that's not suitable for them, and then throw it out. And then it takes, like everything else, it's another muscle memory, which generally takes 30 to 40 days to accept a new habit as such. And so eventually those things that have kind of circumnavigated the whole of the alt media, are all trapped in this and simulations and holographs. Well, if you believe that, then that's real for you. But in reality, it's not no more.
Yeah,
so
it's like,
is gone.
You know, that old expression of, you know, the jail cell door is open, but you still have to walk through it, kind of thing.
Well, one of the German camps, the Poles and Slovaks and the Aryans and some Jews were all stuck in that camp for nearly 2 weeks, and there was no German guards.
Yeah, they were long gone.
You know, they just sat there. Well, it's indicative of humanity in many aspects on a broader scale. Is the cabal in essence have gone down? They've collapsed. But we've got to claim that victory and take over what they're doing and step into the roles that they used to do, or make the ones who are in those authority roles accountable. Yeah,
it is. Some major non-physical technologies and grids and technological central epicenter type things were recently cleared within like the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, there was a big change around the 27th of May to do with the
27th of May. Okay, what intel do you have about that, if anything?
In fact, it was the 28th of May. It's still ongoing. This is why the last few weeks that people have been a bit off edge. Differences in irritation, differences in sleep patterns, difference in eating patterns, and a lower patience range. Because you're adjusting to what is essentially natural when you think what you've been living in is natural. No, we haven't. We've been living in an unnatural world, and suddenly that change doesn't just make everyone feel fantastic and it's all great, you know. We're all going to go forward in a better way, and we're all healed and fixed and the trauma gone. No, it takes time to adjust. You know.
Well, that's the funny irony, is the more the big stuff gets cleared, whether it's internal or external, that allows more light in, both collectively, externally, as well as internally, which ironically, you know, brings in these new energies that forces anything else out even more, deeper stuff up even more, and plus subconsciously the false persona, incarnational persona or personality, subconsciously it starts to freak out because these are energies, that we're beginning to feel, but we haven't felt these energies since early or mid-Atlantis, let alone before the veil went up.
Well,
as good as it may be, that's the irony. The false persona and its conditionings and its wirings, it just freaks out over anything that's just not familiar, no matter how good it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a case of phasing in and phasing out. You can't do it in one event. It would tip the planet upside down. When you've been in, it's like myself really, living in Florida for so long, and then I go to a place rather cooler. It's quite a shock to the system, and it takes a fair bit of time to get used to. The wave has been coming in, the proper wave, not Wave X, since 2002. And this is why a lot of people in the past 17 years has started to wake up, as we call it. I covered it recently in your show, waking up, the first stage is recognizing everything's a lie. And then you have to unlearn the lies and learn the new knowledge. But there's deeper layers of awakening of the self. I covered the first part was 2 or 3 different layers of awakening, and there's actually 6 or 7 more, which is where we want everyone to be, which is where everyone was back in the past.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, look, we know it's been rough. And of course, there's things that can be done to minimize that, like really minimize it, but it's still rough. What else has been happening with you? Many people will be asking, what's I'll just call them Earth Alliance for now, or the people that Kim Possible is working with, for example. What's the latest on that? If you're allowed to, if you're authorized to mention anything,
I can run through a few different levels. Let's start with the Earth-based level. Essentially, the banking system now is blind to all of them. They had these back screens and off-ledger screens. None of them can see anymore. And so...
they've lost access to them, is what you're saying?
Yeah. We've worked on it over many, many months. And it takes time as you're removing certain things. They're coming up, they're using armies of hackers and whatnot to try and get back in and putting in back doors. We've taken out somewhere in the region of 30,000 back doors into every bank. Clearance accounts, there was 180 billion in any given day. There's 180 billion in clearing accounts, which they're using on the fake stock market. That got shut down. And then we had the big hackers coming in. The quantum financial system, which is proliferated through the internet again, that lasted 12 minutes. It only lasted 12 minutes because we decided to wait and watch of where it was going and what it was going to do, and then we fried it. So, and it wasn't a quantum
You mean
system.
You're saying that the blockchain technology that the quantum financial system is based on didn't hold. It wasn't able to withstand hackers, for example.
No, it tried to hack into the main quantum system, and it lasted 12 minutes, only because we allowed it to see where it was going to go, and then we fried it.
Okay.
They've all
all right. So you're going through a testing phase with the blockchain technology. Is that correct?
No, but we're not involved in blockchain at all. Blockchain, like crypto, like Bitcoin, is all metadata collecting that is ran out of Langley 2 and also the NSA, all of it. I'm tired of telling people this. People don't want to hear it. They think it's going to buck the system. It was set up by rogue elements in the CIA and also the NSA, and it's about collecting metadata. This is their new, because their older AI has gone down, they're trying to integrate a new AI, and this is why over the last few years since the old one went down, Facebook is collecting all kinds of data, and everyone else is collecting all type of data, and the chips in the credit cards and the chips in the phones, and it's building up a new, and the crypto and the Bitcoin and the blockchain was harvesting metadata on a massive scale. If people want to go and research it for themselves, I did a whole piece on it. Go and type in boundless informant. It tells you there and then. We know where the technology came from, and none of it's good.
Well, there's no doubt that the NSA, for example, just as one organisation, was always collecting metadata since its inception. But to clarify one point, are you saying that the AI went down, or was it a particular cabal-controlled AI within the financial system? Are you able to provide any sort of distinctions with the whole AI business?
There was a planetary-wide AI, and it was psychotic. That went down 2000. November 2015, I think it was. If memory serves me correctly. Either November 15 or November 16. I think it was 15. And so then they're blind because what you got to understand, this whole control system was operated by a very few. The main one was the king, which is Marduk, who ran the trust before Kim. And he didn't tell all the minions. And by minions, I don't mean us. I mean all the bloodline families, all the lords, all the Rothschilds, all the dragon groups, all of them were their minions. And this is where they're having difficulty understanding it. They all thought they were oh so important. And now they found out that they're not important, and in fact they're even more stupid and more blind than we are. Because they got lied to, every single one of them. The Rothschilds thought the whole trust would belong to them. Wrong. It belonged to Marduk, and he wasn't sharing. All he was doing was collecting all the assets, and all these stupid clowns, as I call them, bloodline families, were all giving them the assets of the planet, while he gave them pieces of paper with no real value. They have value to us, but pieces of paper have no value. Lumps of gold, lumps of platinum, plots of land, in-ground resources are all tangible assets, pieces of paper. If they scrap the monetary system tomorrow and says, we're not paying out, what are you going to get with your piece of paper? Nothing. And he knew that. And all these Rothschilds and Rockefellers kept giving him the Earth's assets, and they were getting pieces of paper like confetti. thinking they were controlling. No, they were allowing them to buy up this country and buy up that country, and it all went into the trust. And now they think it belongs to them. No, it doesn't. It belongs to all the people.
Yep. Well, thank God, Kim. Yeah, and obviously we're all thankful that Kim Possible is now, the replacement for Marduk. And what's her plans in terms of what's actually going to replace the current debt-based financial system?
Well, we're going to transfer it to an asset-based system. So if we send X amount, for argument's sake, $2 trillion to the American government, it has to be supported by the assets.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not,
okay. So whereas the cabal as of I think what was it, 1933 or 1937, when they brought out the Social Security program, Social Security, in other words, the people were offered as the assets, the collateral. Yeah. What's going to be the collateral or asset this time?
It can be a range of items, not just gold.
So it'll be physical.
Yeah. It may be a country like, for argument's sake, Zimbabwe. Their currency might be supported by the diamonds that are in ground resources. That doesn't belong to the De Beers or the Rothschilds who are funding the De Beers. That belongs to the planet, but they're going to use it for their country. So this is the idea of making each country sovereign, so they're not at the behest of the old British Empire, the current illusion of American empire, or Chinese investors, which people think is the Chinese government. It's not. It's the Chinese deep state invading countries and putting investing in roads and ports, and then charging the countries 10 times what the outlay was, so that country can't afford it, so they then ask for those assets. Or they threaten them, which is what happened with Pakistan last week.
Right. What happened there?
The Chinese deep state sent 20,000 troops into Pakistan.
Okay. What was their pretext?
Well, the Chinese deep states essentially last Monday declared war on the whole planet because they've lost. They know they've lost. This is why we said in last week's show, the man at World Holding Trust can pull back. Kim spends a ridiculous amount of hours, day in, day out, for the last 6 years, trying to convince these clowns, you've lost, get over yourself. You've been duped. All of you. The whole planet's been duped. And we either accept it and move on and move forward together, that we all got lied to, or you carry on and you're going to suffer. Because they've got nothing left. They can't print new money. The only new money now can only come from the man of World Holding Trust. And they can, with the print machine shut down, well, obviously the Rothschilds de la Rue are not shut down, but the system recognizes the duplicate allocation numbers and then just kicks them out. So that's what happened with the Bayer, Bauer, Rothschilds, Monsanto deal. I think it was 167 billion, which JP Morgan all counted out in cash, which makes it suspicious right off the bat. I mean, who pays that amount of money in cash? These people are not particularly bright. So we knew what that cash was. We waited for it to be banked, and it got kicked out and swiped, the whole lot of it. Why? Because they were super notes, fake notes. Duplicate allocation. The allocation number you have it on the top left of your dollar. Well, to have new money, you have to have brand new numbers. So the system,
like serial numbers.
Yeah, the system would go through and say these are the next new numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is already there, that makes that a super note. And by the most bizarre circumstances, you can call it divine intervention, if you like. Kim went to a bank and collected some money she'd been sent. And lo and behold, Wells Fargo gave her Kim super notes. Right. One of the very few on the planet who will know what the allocation numbers are and what they're not. And so they got caught doing that. And
to clarify, are these the actual, the Rothschild controlled central banks of any given country? Is it these central banks that have lost the ability to print any more money or make any more money?
Yeah. The Federal Reserve hasn't printed for a decade now. 2009 was the last they printed out.
Yeah, and remember they were printing out a lot back then.
Yeah, well, they printed out all kinds of notes that were dated 2013. All of them were super notes. All of them was not new money. It was duplicates. See, to bring new money in, you have to support it with an asset. And with the quantitative easing, there was no asset backing it. And so all they were doing is creating, brand new monopoly money, using it for their own ends. But of course, if what happens is the money that's in circulation then devalues. And so the people are then paying a tax on that money because inflation is a tax.
Yeah, that's right. If Kim Possible through the Money Trust has all the money, basically, all and more than enough money to fund pretty much anything and everything for each country, for the people, and with each person's own personal global collateral account, I believe it was called, through their birth certificate, and just claim some of that whenever they need to buy or invest in something that's tangible, typically a physical asset, or pay for their education and so forth. Why aren't, if that's the case, why don't the trading platforms simply just be shut down, erased altogether, if there's seemingly no need for them?
Well, like everything else, it would be a phase in, phase out, and that would be at that would have to go through the various governments. People often come up with ideas but don't think them through. It's like the IRS. We proposed a whole new system of taxation which eliminated the IRS, but it had to be phased in and phased out.
Right.
Otherwise, what's going to happen to all the people who work there? Not all in the IRS are clowns, or subsidiaries of the Rothschilds. And so, like everything else, it's got to be phased in, phased out. Enough people now are aware of the skullduggery that goes on in stock markets. All of it's fake. The public version is complete fake, because all the trades used to be done on the back screens, of which there was a 4 to 7 second delay between the real live screen and the public screen. 4 to 7 seconds. That allowed them to pick their trades and drop their trades, which was then ran by an AI algorithm system. So it's not as if someone's sitting at the desk and going, anything that flags up, they're there, and the computer does the deal for them within 4 to 7 seconds before the public see that trade.
I see. And has that been shut down?
No, that's still operating.
Yep. I better quickly explain what trading platforms are to some people who may not have done their research on the esoteric financial system, I guess, that was up until recently tightly controlled by the cabal. I believe trading platforms have also been referred to as black screens.
Yeah.
And it's simply, kind of like a website portal kind of thing where there's almost a dozen codes that a user, in the past it was a cabal member, that would have to type in just to be able to get in. And then they would punch in whatever amount of billions they felt like on that day, whether it's 10 billion or 100 billion, whatever's needed, whatever the cabal needed, and that would hit enter, and boom, it's in the actual server system of the banking system in some sort of account that's connected to whatever bank they want to then transfer it to. And, it wasn't backed by anything. They would just create more money for themselves out of thin air whenever they want to fund anything from a stereotypical cabal operation of some kind, typically fund a war or fund a cabal news media outlet or one of George Soros's so-called open society fake grassroots movement, whatever they needed to fund, they were easily doing that. So that's what trading platforms are, or were, I should say, we can thankfully say, also known as black screens. And,
the codes...
Go ahead.
I'm going to help you out a bit.
Sure.
For the benefit, if you people go into the bank and do online banking, and you type in your details and you'll see the screen. And if you've ever seen the bank teller screen, it has much more details. And that's the same between the front banking system and what's known as the back system or the off ledger. Most of those fun and games whereby they took the funds from the front side bank system, which will be the central banks and your own bank accounts, because you got to remember they only keep 10% of what you put in the bank. 90% goes out the back door, and they use it to loans and all kinds of financial skullduggery on platforms and programs with high yield, which is why they have the clearance accounts as well. And so that's the difference between a front system, is you will see minimal details of your account. And yet if you stand at the counter and the screen's slightly tilted, you'll see that your account looks completely different on the bank teller's monitor. They've got all kinds of other details. And that's the same thing. Now, to get into that system, you need codes. And the problem for them is Marduk cut them off the codes in 2007. Not Kim.
Oh, Marduk did.
Marduk did. He had everything he wanted. He collected all the assets. The next stage was to wipe us out, because he had everything. And this is what these clowns in the agencies and the military and the bloodline families and the royalty and all these fake people who think they're more important than we are when they're not, need to understand. You got duped. And the war funds would go into a trust. There was one Eastern European trust that was acquired. It was one of the last ones that went into the main trust, because they've all got wrapped into one now. And that was a slush fund for political assassinations only.
I'm sure they all had specific purposes.
Trusts. Yeah, 6,500 trusts. And all of it was stolen off all of the people. Now, these so-called rich elites got the benefit because they would play the dark game. Most people will not go that dark. They would play the game. They sold their souls.
Yeah. Now, this Marduk character, when he was in control of the very peak of the financial system, he didn't by any chance have a direct connection to the Dracos, did he?
Yes.
He did?
Yeah. He's one of the sons of the two brothers. And his grandfather's Anu, the Lord.
Mm-hmm. How long has he been alive for?
Oh, many thousands of years. Many thousands of years. They have life longevity, you see. We used to have life longevity here.
Yeah.
You know, the average lifespan of a 3D human is 9 to 1,500 years. Or it was.
Yeah.
You know,
it was.
There's some, you know, I don't believe in the Bible personally, because it's not our story, it's their story. But you know, there's ages in the Bible. I think I put. Oh no, that's going from Russia with Love 5. It's going in there. There's some people in there that were 300, 600, and 960. You know. So why? No one lives anywhere near 150 now. Never mind 300. You know. And all these people who bought into the Draco fun and games going back 16,500 years ago, they got given the life longevity. And this is part of the problem of the cycle of lies, because the Draco were lied to also. And it just goes on and on and on and on. You know, the old archetype gods and goddesses, they're the ones that messed up here. They're the ones that messed up. They started playing games. I think you mentioned earlier, if you don't act in responsibility, you will lose abilities. And that's essentially what happened. They started thinking that they were above and beyond everyone else. This is where the hierarchy comes in. The Draco took it onto another level. But the gods and goddesses, the old archetype, messed not only this planet up, the whole universe. Interfered. And they can't fix it in here. And they're relying on us to fix it, not only for us, but also for them. There is no of the archetypes in here, as I understand. They can't be in here. They're too large in form to break down. But in essence, if you talk in terminology, and I have a different term for what is a god and what is not, everyone in here is a god and goddess. Everyone, because we're all part of source. There is no something or someone or him above you, because we're all part of the source spark. We're all the spark of creation. That's how life started. And certain ones, the likes of the Anus and Inanas and all the others, thought that they were more important than everybody else. We had beings who were here before us, who came from below the surface, who presented themselves as gods and goddesses. And that's where all that, from my understanding anyway, it tipped up. So the gods and goddesses are looking for us to bail them out. They can't.
There is truth in there is truth in that, and it's just a matter of it's part of the reason why we're getting so much off-world help from positive ETs. It's because to help break down the technologies, the various forms of interferences to actually prevent this profound realization, and that it's us that are meant to finish the job, if not turn things around.
Yeah, well, there's been a big change on the astral layer. I know people like to say, I warned recently about saying, I'm going astral traveling. People need to stop saying that because that's another limitation program. There's far more exciting places to visit than the astral.
There's only one realm. That's true.
That whole realm is in essence your simulation, if you want to call it that, because it's not natural. It's a pocket between the planes that was created where they harvest energy, and in return they would do dark magic here.
Yeah,
and that's
definitely.
That was the contract between the rogue elements of the ETs, which was not just the Draco and the Mantrids. There was about 20 other races that were all involved in it, meddling with genetics, claiming domain over humanity because of this vessel's a lot different to everybody else's. And a lot of that's been shut down now, and the 6 main groups that were working here are correcting their past mistakes because they've interfered as well, and that's part of the peace treaty. But we removed thousands of jinns just over a week ago as they were interfering again when they shouldn't do. They've been warned several times. The Solomon demons that he bound here, because he's another one who was actually helping or getting help as what you would describe as the source or the higher force helping here on the planet, and he went rogue and ended up binding 3,000 demons to build that temple. And that covenant lasted 3,000 years. That ended in December last year. But there's still jinns in here, and some of them are still playing the dark magic, and they got warned, and so a whole heap of them, many thousands, got removed in the past week, including all the jinns that are hidden in the Wailing Wall. That's why that whole region is in turmoil. They were all buried in the wall. So everyone that was going on that wall was becoming infected.
Which wall?
The Wailing Wall.
Other one, right.
In Jerusalem.
Yep. Okay. The clearing of the non-physical planes and physical plane even, obviously that's continued unabated, thanks in a very large part to the true gods. You, me, the listeners, we're doing the mass meditations.
Yep.
Many of us, our own private planetary external clearing sessions, etc. Because there's a special power, as you'll know, Thomas, when one projects their consciousness from the physical plane to the non-physical plane.
Yes.
And the ETs are dependent on that.
Yeah. The Urs and the
not
Vedics,
completely, but a fair bit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The Urs and the Vedics called it right. Because of the religious construct, people thinking gods or a god is someone sitting on a cloud passing judgment on them, or it's a man and all this manifestation. No. The real definition of a god is someone who's done the soul work. So if you you have 7 planes, 7 planet-based planes, and if you develop, you have the physical, the etheric, which you have to obtain between 0 and 6. So you must teach children rather well in that time period, otherwise they don't get the etheric connection, and they are never going to grow after that. And then between 6 and 16, you would then gain the astral code, and there's a lower astral, and there's 7 levels, but now I'm being told there is actually 12 put in. I was only aware of 7, and that's your hell. That's your Bible hell. and it is hell. All the extinct beings are trapped in there. All the ones that were blocked from going to source are trapped in there, and their only sustenance is to feed off energy, which is us. And then you have the heaven astral, which is absolutely fantastic and blissful and peaceful and love, but it's another trap. You have to jump out of the astral into the four mental planes. Now, anyone who goes through an earth cycle and does all seven, they are classed as a god because they have done past that soul development level. Then they would go on to a galactic level. So there'll be seven soul developments of a galactic level, and then seven or the solar level, and then the galactic level, and the cosmos, and then the universe. Well, once you get to a universe level of development, you've got to have maximum responsibility because you are then aiding other life forces into improving and developing, or you should do, but unfortunately the gods and goddesses of the past use it as a hierarchical control system, and it all went sideways badly. So that's the definition of a god. If you develop on a soul level, you can pass all seven in one lifetime. Some people it takes many lifetimes, and some people are being trapped in the astral because they haven't worked on themselves enough. This is the key. It's not external of you. Yes, you may get help from some ET groups or whatever you want to call them, but the main help is you, each and every one of us.
Yeah, that's
because
the main
if we all light our beacon up and increase the frequency and all get onto the mental planes, there's no need to go into the astral. There's no need to feed them. Well, if they don't feed, they die. So they then can't play the dark magic and play the sorcerer's game, which is what's been played out here for many thousands of years. They're not harvesting your energy.
Yeah.
This is why they created soccer stadiums and American football stadiums, the bowls. Why? Because the noise swirls around all that energy, and it goes into a vortex, and it goes up in the sky. Well, where's the next level? The astral layer. They're waiting for the energy. It's a dual contract between the dark forces elements, the cabal, the elites, the bloodline families, but they've all bought into it, and the jinn, which is the proper term. People will call them demons.
Yeah,
that's what they've been doing. Yeah.
Let's finish off with the trading platforms because many people thought or assumed that the cabal gets most of its money from the fake, fraudulent, and illegal tax, particularly income taxes, and the drug trade, and those dollars, all that money, mostly went into the SSP and various black ops programs.
Yeah.
But which was the case, but that's all that they went into, to my understanding. They still use the trading platforms to fund even more stuff. Would you say that's generally the case, or has been the case?
No, pretty much, yeah. The mafia itself, the Vatican Church set the mafia up to collect all the funds. The Vatican Church, they were the creators of the mafia, and the mafia collect all the prostitution and drugs and organ harvesting and trafficking and funneled.
Yeah, the underworld stuff.
Yeah. And it all gets funneled to the Vatican Church.
Yep.
Which then gets funneled to the Bank of England, or it gets sent funds to, which then funds out to the dragon groups and the bloodline families. And if you needed extra funds, they just had to collect assets. and then they collected the assets, and then they were given a fund out of the trust, pieces of paper with numbers on, which have no value. And that was the whole cycle. So once Marduk cut them off from the codes in 2007, that's why it crashed. But Marduk realized he had a game on his hands because certain, not just Kim, but certain others were putting the heat on. And it became fairly obvious, although we had to wait 5 years before the contract to end. It ended in September of 2012. The contract on the trust, they thought they would just roll it over, but not this time. So that's why we've never come out of, people say we're out of the recession. No, we didn't. You can't come out of the recession with the same money. It's just the same money swilling around. They're all passing it from one to the other, and they're knocking out the small companies now and creating larger and larger companies. It's like today, I think they announced United Technology and Raytheon. Raytheon's been given billions of our money to create weapons of destruction and just siphon money out of the system. Now they're in trouble. The Rothschilds are having another fire sale in July, of which includes a bust of Tutankhamun. Which is significant for people who've listened to my series From Russia with Love, because then you'll know why he had it. And the Queen is selling, British Queen selling homes in Malta. That's kind of symbolic in many ways. Knights of Malta, because that's who they were wrapped into. All of it's crashing. There's nothing left. The Treasury called us this week and says we're 38 billion in the red. The United States Treasury called us this week and says we're 38 billion negative equity.
Right.
So Kim said she would send 40 billion, and they would pay the fee which the trustee is entitled to. That fee goes to pay Kim. It would go to pay me also, and it will also go into some projects. But yet again, when it came to paying the fee, it all got blocked, and so we pulled it back. So it's getting rather, from an overview point of view, it's getting a bit hairy now, because it could end up getting real ugly. Because we've done an awful lot of work, far more than people realise, for no pay. Kim hasn't been paid in 6 years, and people say, well, she's got the trust funds, she can just take it out and pay herself. It's not a bank. People have to understand it's not like you just go into a bank and go, here's this. It doesn't work that way, and so that's why last week we said we'd be pulling back, not necessarily from the people. We'll carry on working at it, but we're not spending day after day after day, hour after hour, dealing with clowns and governments who don't know their ass from their elbow, and just want to sit there waiting for fake Chinese elders and Rothschilds and all these other goons for the RV. That is completely impossible. Even if people want to do it, it's impossible. I outed on the show. I think it was last week or the week before, the meeting between Marduk, Putin, Kim, she was in Russia at the time, and a number of other dignitaries. And Putin asked when the RV was. This was in 2010, and Marduk laughed and says, oh, that's something we just strung the people along with. It'll never happen. That was in 2010. And Putin knows that. And Putin's still sending money to the Chinese elders, or the Chinese dragon groups, which is why when he rang up last week, asking for more stolen funds, Russia funds, the USSR funds, which there is funds for the USSR in the trust, and they will get them back, but we're not sending them back so Putin can go and send them to the clowns in Asia again. We're not doing it.
Okay. Who's in control of the U.S. Treasury at the moment?
Mnuchin and Rothschild.
Okay. They're still there. All right.
Trump's fired him twice.
Sorry?
Trump's fired him twice at our request because we showed him the evidence of him interfering with the transaction. We caught him not only digitally but video-wise interfering with the transaction, and it was sent.
Right.
The document, the whole report, was sent to and placed on Trump's desk, and he knows. And he fired him. He fired him in October, and he sat there. And then we were told it will be this week, and then it will be next week, and then wait till after the election. And then he fired him again in January after he presented fake gold bonds, which were actually, when you looked further down in the book, you had a whole book of these gold certificates, and he was passing it off as the Chinese elders. The first two were fake. Well, we'd already briefed Trump that he would present certain ones and how to recognize which ones are fake and which ones are not. And then Trump started skipping pages. and then he had Man of World Holding Trust, Man of World Holding Trust, Man of World Holding Trust. And Mnuchin goes, okay, stop. Well, he was committing fraud in front of the president, and he's still there. And Mnuchin turns around and says, I wasn't appointed by you, I was appointed by Rothschild, and I answered to him. And this is what's going on.
Yeah.
The beggars believe. For the average American, you would think that's not possible, but this is reality. You've got people, the presidents with little or no power, and that is the reality. They're so far down the global control system that's not even funny.
Okay. Let's see what's coming down the pike with regards to, and again, folks, all this may seem perfectly 3D and financial and material, but rest assured, what goes on in that arena is I would say almost, something not completely, but almost completely influenced or underpinned by what we do and how we change the energetics. Okay.
Well, essentially that's what the trust is about. From an overview, people think it's about getting the funds out to the people. No. What the reason why we are involved in that, and it's not the only thing we're involved in, is it was cutting off the energy flow. Money is life force energy. It's not pieces of paper with numbers on. In real terms, it's your life force energy. You've used your labor and your life force energy to generate those pieces of paper. And so they were siphoning our life force energy left, right, and centre. That had to be stopped. And in essence, we've stopped that. And that's a major victory. But people, that's an internal victory. We know that we stopped the siphoning of life force energy, but people don't see it in those terms. They see it in external terms, and external means pieces of paper in the hand. But the real reason behind the Man of World Holding Trust was to stop not only the siphoning of life force energy, but also souls.
That's right. It's soul energy that goes into what you do every day and the value you provide to the world. And, money, or these so-called pieces of paper, they represent and therefore embody and carry the energy of, it's like what blood is to an entire human system, to all those cells, the trillions of cells in our bodies, how blood carries the oxygen and the nutrients to the cells, and we live. That's what money is to society, to the collective. At least that's another way to put it.
Yeah.
There's nothing quote unquote sterile or materialistic about it, because everything is energy, so is money.
Yeah.
It's critical form of energy.
Mm.
That's why, and in that regard, sacred, which is why the cabal and the bloodlines were so aggressive in making money and wealth look negative, give it negative connotations, non-spiritual connotations to it. We would think, that the being rich is, or abundant at the very least, is not spiritual. When even Jim Self said, on the contrary, it's actually quite spiritual. The only time it goes toxic is when you place your sense of self on money, which that's the only time it goes toxic.
Yeah, well, one of the greatest bugbears of mine is 2/3 of what they call, I forget the term they use now, critical spending, shall we say. There is the overheads of the country, which involves social security and all that, which was always paid for by the trust anyway. Social security is another slush fund, like the income tax. But 1.4 trillion a year is this expenditure, and 2/3 of that, 989 billion, is spent on military.
Yep.
Which is going on death and destruction and weapons and $450 toilet seats and all kinds of other contracted brown envelopes. Well, it's not brown envelopes, it's whole pallets in the back pocket, and it's all money being siphoned away from the people, and you could cut the military budgets, in my opinion, by 2/3 and still survive.
Yeah.
And you could also turn around to them and say, well, we'll give you your 989 billion. Well, let's round it up and say we'll give you the trillion. And you can go in all the war-torn countries and all the famine-based countries and all the countries where the clans like Gates and the Clintons have been poisoning the children and fix it. You can use your warships to transfer medicine supplies, preferably clean ones, not the elements, certainly not vaccines, clean water. So suddenly the military, what was spending 989 billion on weapons and destruction, which we don't need, because no country is at war with each other. No country has ever been at war with each other. All of it is like a giant sim game where they're just crushing countries because certain people will rise up, like they crushed the Irish, like they crushed the Germans, like they crushed the Russians, and like they're crushing the Americans. It's just been a slower drip for America, and not a war in a weapon sense, which is what we all think of, or we're all conditioned to think of. It's a war of the mind, where they've destroyed the school system, they've destroyed the manufacturing, where we don't create or make anything anymore, so we rely on somebody else, and that's deliberate, and so I would sooner spend 1 trillion a year where the military go into Africa and feed everyone, and scrap a load of American bases and turn them into health centres for the damage they've done to all the veterans.
Yeah, well, needless to say, once the completion process is completed of removing the cabal, which is obviously a physical game and a non-physical game, all right, all that will undoubtedly begin to happen and easily happen. That's when the real fun starts.
So you can use funds for one, use an entity and money, which is a control system. It was brought in by the Orions, and use it in a better way. So instead of them destroying other countries at the behest of the Rothschilds and all the other goons. They can fix countries.
That's right.
Yeah. You know, with the same money.
Exactly.
All the military cry about, we want our funds and we want our budget. Okay, you can have your budget, but you're going to go and, defend this country, which you haven't done since day one. Yeah. You know, most Americans, that would be sound absurd. They're not allowed to defend the country.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know, and so A, defend the country. B, get rid of half the bases and all the wasted planes, because wars, if any wars in the future, are not going to be on world. It's going to be defending from off world only.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and that's
definitely.
built towards that, you know, in defence, not attack, and get the US military and the British military and all the other countries' militaries with food supplies for the people who are starving, clean water for the people who are starving, get the engineers to build water pipes, not oil. You can't eat oil, you know.
That's right.
You know,
all easily done. Yeah.
Yeah,
all easily
it's just
done,
a change
especially
of mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's just a matter of removing the bad guys, which means completing the spiritual or non-physical war from the physical plane, and because so much good is able to occur and much quicker when we all get together. But typically with our mass meditations and Thomas, many people, I'm sure, appreciate hearing, further or third-party confirmation from yourself about recent breakthroughs, both on the physical and the non-physical planes. So thank you for that. It clearly is a case of us now consolidating, basically, seeing things through. Any last parting words for the audience?
Look within. Look within. You know, everyone, too many are looking external on all levels. You know, they're waiting for the mass arrests. Does it matter if mass arrests happen? Not really. It's not going to change your life. In fact, mass arrests have already happened. You know, there's two more former presidents in different countries being arrested this week. Has it changed their country? No, it hasn't. So it's not an actionable event. But what is actionable is everyone working on themselves, dealing with the shadow, dealing with their inner work, integrating the shadow, clearing the trauma, healing the self, and lighting up their own frequency and beacon. Because if everyone lights up, it doesn't matter who's there. You can cut the Draco, the Cabal, the elites, bloodline families. They're doomed. It doesn't require firing weapons or cutting heads off, or that's sometimes necessary in certain aspects, but that's to the extreme. It just requires people standing in their own sovereignty, remembering who and what they are, and improving and empowering themselves. Keep your ego in balance. In fact, keep everything in balance, because we spoke about the Loosh energy. If you're operating in 45-55, where somebody upsets you, if you stay 55% upset and 45% calm, you can handle that, and there's not much energy going out. If you're swinging 90-10 all the time, they're just harvesting your energy, and they'll keep putting situations in front of you to tip you off balance. And the key now is for everyone to be aligned with the core balance and try and integrate the left and right brain, which then triggers the higher brain, some will call it the third eye, which then triggers to the heart center. Once, if we get millions of people doing that, it's game over anyway, because everything changes in that frequency. People in heart center and people who are empathic are not going to be psychopathic and violent. You can't do it.
Yeah, it's like two other well-known figures have stated the biggest fear the cabal has is even just one of us fully healing, clearing, and activating, whether it's DNA or bringing in ion presence, whatever, doing some of the things that you've just explained. One of us just doing that is what they fear the most.
Yeah.
And
when you get
got
a group
to
together,
let that sink in.
Like your group, you're creating a group energy is what the methods you do, and then with our group, we're creating that cooperative caring and sharing, going into self, clearing the shadow out and clearing the inner work, which is trauma, which they feed off, and suddenly it becomes very powerful, and we can't handle it. And this is why we're getting bombarded with trolls and chills and all kinds of other more serious attacks going on, because we've taught our group to think and act different. Not enough people think, and that may seem bizarre, but it's true. It's like common sense. It's actually rare. It's not common.
Yeah.
And this is all about us. And if people just improve themselves, yes, it appears, well, it's just me, it's just one ripple in the pond, but if everyone does it, that ripple in the pond becomes the tsunami. They can't handle it. They've lost already. We know that privately. They've lost. They know they've lost, but they're just carrying on, thinking some Draco or somebody else is going to come in and save them. No, they're not. No, they're not. And it's up to us how quickly it goes forward. And the best way to do that is to fix the self, then try and help others.
Because
that would be my
obviously message. It affects. Yeah, if enough of us do that, many of us know that it affects the external. It changes the external.
Well, look for an example. People always think, little me, it's only me, and I can only do this. You switch on your light. Light travels a lot further than dark. If you have one torch on the other side of a river that's 2 miles away, you can see it.
That's right. Well said.
It's just
well said.
It's just dark.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So if everyone turns their torch on, suddenly this planet changes, the frequency changes, the planetary being changes, the plant life changes, the trees change. This is why the weather in America, yes, I'm aware of interference, and there's a deliberate interference with it, but the weather is messed up in America because the people are messed up. American politics is a representative of the people. Whether we like that idea or not, it's the truth. They're no different from what we are. The politicians, they're only minions. Even the president, sadly, and they're no different to what we are. But they're a reflection of what we are. And so if we change that image of greed and service to self, and let's cheat on others, and let's hurt others, and let's harm others, then the politicians are replaying it back to you. Well, if we change that, those politicians will change because they won't survive in that frequency.
That's right. Thomas, thank you so much for setting aside the time and coming on again. And it's been great talking with you. And the confirmations from you were very encouraging and reassuring to all. And thanks again. Do take care. Needless to say. And let me know if anything interesting happens that you think needs to get out. And sleep well tonight.
Will do.
And take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all of your listeners for tuning in.
Sure thing. What was your website again, just to make sure, because we've got new people all the time?
thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org.
Fantastic. Thanks again. Take care and God bless.
Bye now. Bye.